This message is for everyone over 60 in the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, or Australia who's starting to feel the impact of age on their bones, aching joints, stiffness, slower healing from even minor falls. Your bones are changing. Osteoporosis, bone loss, and fractures aren't just numbers on a medical chart. They're real, painful, and life-altering. You need to hear this because food is not just fuel anymore. At your age, it's medicine, and if you pick the right foods, you can dramatically improve your bone density, reduce fractures, and maybe even reverse bone loss. Bone loss accelerates rapidly after 60, especially for women post-menopause. But men are not safe either. Most people in the United States have no idea how fast this can happen. You can lose up to 20% of your bone mass in the 5 to 7 years following menopause. And if your diet is filled with processed foods, added sugars and soda, yes, even diet soda, you're stripping minerals like calcium and magnesium straight out of your bones. Think about that. Every time you reach for a can of soda or a highly processed frozen dinner, your skeleton pays the price. Real people in Canada and Australia have shared how they didn't realize how fragile their bones had become until they experienced their first unexpected fracture. Just from stepping off a curb or reaching to grab something. Do you feel twinges in your hips, lower back, or knees? That might not be arthritis. It could be early bone deterioration. You've been told to drink milk and take calcium. That's not wrong, but it's nowhere near enough. Calcium, without the right cofactors, can actually increase the risk of arterial calcification. Your body doesn't just need calcium. It needs a symphony of nutrients to build and maintain bone structure. Vitamin D3, vitamin K2, magnesium, boron, and even protein. Let's start with the obvious: calcium-rich foods. But here's what you probably haven't heard. Dairy isn't your only or even your best source, especially if you're lactose intolerant like a huge portion of the United States population over 60. Collard greens, turnip greens, bok choy, and kale are calcium powerhouses. Not only do they give you calcium, but they also offer vitamin K, crucial for binding calcium into the bones rather than letting it float into your arteries, causing heart problems. Salmon, especially wild-caught, is another superfood. In the United States, where vitamin D deficiency is rampant among the elderly, especially during long, dark winters in northern states, salmon provides both vitamin D and omega-3 fatty acids, which reduce inflammation and improve the activity of bone-building cells called osteoblasts. Think about someone in the United Kingdom with chronic joint pain and recurring stress fractures. They started eating fatty fish like salmon or sardines 3 times a week, and within months, their bone scans showed measurable improvements. That's not just diet, it's recovery. But what about magnesium? Most people over 60 are deficient in it, and yet it's one of the key minerals in the structure of bones. Without magnesium, calcium doesn't absorb properly. You need foods like pumpkin seeds, almonds, black beans, and spinach. Americans love convenience, but if your convenience comes from a box, it's likely stripped of magnesium. Ever feel like your bones are aching for no reason? That could be a magnesium deficiency. A man in Canada, after years of relying on convenience store meals, found his magnesium levels were critically low, and his bones were deteriorating fast. Switching to whole foods changed everything. Vitamin K2 is another nutrient almost entirely missing from standard United States diets. It tells your body where to put calcium, into the bones, not into your arteries. You find it in foods like natto, a fermented soy product popular in Japan. But in the United States, a more common source would be pasture-raised egg yolks, liver, and some hard cheeses. Someone in Australia, suffering from both high calcium scores and weak bones, started adding Gouda cheese and egg yolks into their diet. Follow-up scans showed reduced arterial calcification and improved bone markers. This nutrient isn't a gimmick, it's essential. And don't forget protein. Too many seniors still believe the myth that high protein intake causes bone loss. The truth is exactly the opposite. Bones are half protein by volume. You need quality sources of protein to maintain the collagen matrix that keeps bones flexible and strong. Think pasture-raised meats, organic poultry, lentils, chickpeas, and Greek yogurt. Low protein intake is a silent destroyer of bone density among people over 60, especially in Canada and United Kingdom, where plant-based diets are growing more popular but often lack adequate total protein. Are you eating enough protein to support not just your muscles, but your bones? Next, boron, a mineral that isn't talked about enough. It improves calcium absorption and supports estrogen levels, which helps prevent postmenopausal bone loss. Boron is found in raisins, prunes, and avocados. A woman in her late 60s from the United States dealing with painful osteoporosis started adding prunes to her daily diet based on a clinical recommendation. After just 6 months, her T-score improved. Not just stabilized, improved. She said it felt like a miracle, but it wasn't. It was boron, a trace mineral almost completely missing from standard processed diets. Then we get to silicon, especially in the form of orthosilicic acid, which supports collagen formation and bone mineralization. In the United Kingdom, some doctors are recommending silicon-rich mineral water to elderly patients with brittle bones. Foods like oats, bananas, and even green beans contain it, and it helps in regenerating and strengthening bone structure. If you're only focusing on calcium, you're missing this hidden key to flexible, fracture-resistant bones. Now, let's talk about phosphorus, but carefully. While it's crucial for bone health, excess phosphorus from sodas and processed meats can throw off the calcium-phosphorus ratio, leading to bone loss. In the United States, where cola drinks are a daily habit for millions over 60, phosphorus overload is one of the least recognized reasons for weakened bones. Imagine drinking something every day that's literally dissolving your skeletal strength over time. A retired teacher in Canada, after eliminating soda and processed deli meats, saw remarkable changes in bone pain and energy. She said it was like waking up with a different body. And there's more to this than just nutrients. It's also about absorption. Gut health plays a critical role in how well you absorb these bone-boosting nutrients. If you have chronic constipation, bloating, or irritable bowel symptoms, your absorption is already compromised. People over 60 in the United States often deal with low stomach acid, which reduces calcium and magnesium absorption. You need probiotics. You need fermented foods like kefir, sauerkraut, and kimchi to support the bacteria that help unlock your food's full potential. A man from Australia who suffered multiple spinal fractures started focusing on gut repair with probiotic-rich foods, and the change was dramatic. Not just in his digestion, but in his physical strength and stability. Let's talk about the foods that are secretly destroying your bones. Because even if you're adding calcium and vitamin D, it won't matter if you're still eating things that deplete bone density. One of the worst offenders is sodium. Americans in the United States, especially those over 60, tend to consume excessive sodium, mainly from packaged and restaurant foods. High sodium intake causes your body to excrete calcium through the urine. That means every salty snack, every heavily salted frozen dinner, every fast food item is flushing precious calcium away from your bones. One woman in her 70s from Florida admitted that she hadn't cooked in years, relying only on TV dinners and canned soups. Her bone scan revealed early-stage osteoporosis, despite taking calcium supplements for 5 years. She didn't realize that sodium was canceling out every benefit. Then there's sugar, which causes chronic inflammation and reduces the ability of bones to absorb and use minerals efficiently. Americans love sugar in every form: sodas, cookies, breakfast cereals, and even healthy yogurts. This high sugar intake increases cortisol levels, which in turn breaks down bone tissue. A former athlete in the United Kingdom, after decades of sugary sports drinks and processed snacks, was shocked when he fractured his hip from a mild fall. His doctors told him his bone density was closer to someone in their late 80s. He was only 63. Caffeine is another issue, but it depends on how you consume it. Moderate coffee intake can be safe, even beneficial due to antioxidants. But if you're drinking multiple cups a day and not getting enough calcium or magnesium, it can become a problem. High caffeine consumption increases calcium loss through urine. In the United States, the habit of oversized coffee drinks is common, and often those drinks come loaded with sugar and syrups, making the problem worse. A woman from California shared that she was drinking 4 large iced coffees a day, believing it helped her energy and focus. She didn't realize that her daily caffeine overload, combined with a low-calcium diet, was silently weakening her bones. And let's not forget alcohol. Regular consumption, even at moderate levels, reduces bone formation and lowers testosterone and estrogen levels, which are essential for bone maintenance. In Canada, a man who had a glass or 2 of wine each evening started noticing chronic back pain and was later diagnosed with osteopenia. The connection? His liver's reduced ability to activate vitamin D due to alcohol intake. If you're drinking regularly and not thinking about your nutrient levels, your bones are paying a hidden price. Now there's something else crucial: your acid-base balance. Highly acidic diets, typical in the United States and Australia, filled with processed meats, refined grains, and sugary foods, force your body to buffer the acid by pulling calcium from the bones. This concept is called the acid-ash hypothesis, and while debated, many clinicians have seen the difference in patients who shift toward more alkaline-forming diets, more vegetables, more fruits, fewer processed foods. A man in his mid-60s from Texas was told he had early signs of bone thinning. His doctor advised shifting to more leafy greens, fewer fast foods, and cutting soda. 6 months later, he felt stronger and had improved lab markers for bone turnover. Don't ignore inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation, often caused by poor diet, is a huge factor in age-related bone loss. If you're consuming processed vegetable oils, trans fats, sugary cereals, and refined carbs daily, you're feeding inflammation that slowly breaks down bone tissue. In the United Kingdom, one nutritionist shared the story of a client who had joint pain, low bone density, and extreme fatigue. Her diet was dominated by white bread, chips, and takeout. When she replaced inflammatory foods with anti-inflammatory ones, like olive oil, turmeric, wild berries, and green leafy vegetables, her bone markers stabilized, and she even reported better sleep and less joint pain. Let's now look at absorption enhancers and food pairings, which most people never even consider. Calcium is best absorbed in small amounts throughout the day. Taking in 1 to 200 milligrams at once won't help you. You need to spread it out and combine it with magnesium, vitamin D, and fat-soluble carriers. For example, pairing spinach with olive oil improves the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins. Eating canned salmon with bones not only gives you calcium, but also provides the healthy fats necessary for its absorption. A senior from Canada shared how just learning about these simple combinations improved their results dramatically, especially when they added vitamin K2-rich foods like brie cheese with leafy greens. Then there's collagen, which is the main protein in bones. After 60, natural collagen production plummets, leading to more brittle bones and joints. Collagen peptides, either from bone broth or supplements, support both bone matrix and joint flexibility. Foods like bone broth, chicken skin, and even gelatin-based recipes support collagen levels. A retired nurse from Australia began making homemade bone broth every week after dealing with chronic knee pain and a cracked rib. Her improvement in joint mobility and bone pain reduction was so noticeable, her doctor asked what she changed. Now let's talk about hydration. Dehydration weakens all connective tissues, including bone. Many seniors in the United States aren't drinking enough water, especially during winter. Even mild dehydration impairs nutrient transport and waste elimination, both crucial for bone health. A man in New York, who thought he drank enough fluids through coffee and soda, started experiencing cramps and weakness. When he shifted to drinking structured water with electrolytes and cut out soda, his strength returned, and his follow-up scans showed less inflammatory activity around joints. Physical activity must also be paired with diet. Weight-bearing exercises are essential. Walking, stair climbing, light resistance training. These send signals to the bones that they must remain strong. Without these signals, your body assumes it doesn't need to maintain bone density. A 67-year-old woman in Canada had osteopenia and was terrified of taking bisphosphonates. Instead, she combined strength training 3 times a week with a nutrient-dense diet. 18 months later, her DEXA scan was no longer in the osteopenia range. But remember, food has to be consistent, and variety is everything. If you keep repeating the same meals, like only milk and multivitamins, you're missing out. The body is designed to thrive on diversity. Phytochemicals in plants, enzymes in raw foods, trace minerals in nuts and seeds, all contribute to stronger bones. Don't just eat for calcium. Eat for magnesium, silica, vitamin C, potassium, manganese, and zinc. Think squash, kiwi, sunflower seeds, lentils, quinoa, sardines, cabbage, blackstrap molasses. Every one of these foods brings a piece to the puzzle. And then there's timing. Intermittent fasting can be helpful for cellular regeneration, but too much fasting in older adults can lead to undereating, especially of protein and bone-building nutrients. If you're over 60 and skipping meals often, your bone repair mechanisms are slowing down. In the United States, intermittent fasting has become trendy even among older adults, but many are doing it wrong, skipping essential nutrients during the eating window. One man in California tried 16.8 fasting without protein focus and saw rapid muscle loss and a significant decline in strength. When he rebalanced his eating with high-protein, mineral-rich meals during his window, the bone and muscle loss stopped. You also need to be realistic about supplements. Whole foods come first, but supplements can help. Calcium citrate absorbs better with low stomach acid. Vitamin D3 must be paired with K2. Magnesium glycinate is easier on the gut. Strontium can improve bone formation in some cases, but it's controversial. Never add supplements blindly. A woman in Australia, misinformed by a friend, began taking high-dose calcium carbonate and ended up with kidney stones. Her story is not uncommon. Supplements need balance, context, and proper ratios, not mega doses. Let's go further into the small but critical changes that can make or break your bone health after 60. People across the United States, Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom are unknowingly sabotaging their skeletal structure by how they prepare their meals. Microwaving vegetables until they're mushy? You're destroying key nutrients like vitamin C and folate that help with collagen production and calcium metabolism. overcooking meats until they're dry, you're reducing available amino acids that are essential for building the protein matrix of your bones. Even storing food in plastic containers can have an impact if endocrine-disrupting chemicals like BPA leach into your meals and mess with hormones that affect bone remodeling. In a case from Ontario, a woman struggling with early osteoporosis was eating well but microwaving everything in old plastic containers daily. After she eliminated plastic and began steaming her vegetables and slow-cooking her proteins, her nutritional absorption improved and her pain levels dropped dramatically. You also need to look at your hormones. Bones are not just a mineral matter. They're a hormonal tissue. Testosterone, estrogen, DHEA, cortisol, insulin, all play massive roles in how your bones rebuild or degrade. If your hormones are out of balance, your bones will suffer no matter how much calcium you take. Many older adults in the United States are dealing with undiagnosed low testosterone or estrogen, especially after 60. In Australia, more doctors are starting to test bone markers alongside hormone panels in older adults. One man in his early 60s had normal calcium intake, but was found to have dangerously low testosterone. With proper medical support and increased dietary intake of zinc-rich foods like pumpkin seeds and shellfish, his bone scans improved and his fatigue disappeared. Your sleep is another vital piece no one talks about. Growth hormone is released during deep sleep, and it's one of the most important hormones for bone repair. If you're tossing and turning or dealing with sleep apnea, your bone regeneration is being cut short every single night. In the United Kingdom, a retired engineer noticed that no matter what supplements he took, his bones weren't improving. It turned out he had undiagnosed sleep apnea. After treatment and improving his sleep quality, his next DEXA scan showed positive changes. Sleep is medicine for your skeleton. Even the way you move and hold your body matters more than you realize. Poor posture increases risk of spinal compression fractures. Slouching, especially from sitting for hours on end, increases the load on the vertebrae and weakens the supportive structures. In Canada, a physiotherapist reported that patients over 60 who began practicing posture correction exercises daily, just 10 minutes a day, saw reduced back pain and increased balance, which lowers fracture risk drastically. If you've been hunched over from hours of TV or tablet use, that posture is telling your bones not to bother staying strong. Balance and coordination training matter just as much as lifting weights. Every year, thousands of older adults in the United States suffer hip fractures not because their bones were weak, but because their coordination failed and they fell. Tai Chi, yoga, and targeted balance exercises improve proprioception, the body's ability to sense movement and position. In Australia, senior centers are adding balance training to their programs after seeing how it reduces fracture risk. 1. Woman, after falling in her kitchen and fracturing her wrist, joined a local balance class and has never fallen since. She also changed her diet to include more anti-inflammatory foods like turmeric, ginger, and leafy greens. Her story isn't rare. It's just not well known. Stress is another invisible force chipping away at your bones. Chronic stress leads to high cortisol, and high cortisol breaks down bone tissue. In the United States, where financial, medical, and family-related stress is common among seniors, cortisol-induced bone loss is a quiet epidemic. Cortisol not only weakens bone, it also messes with calcium metabolism and hormone balance. You need stress reduction techniques like deep breathing, mindfulness, walking outdoors, and creative hobbies. A Vietnam veteran from Texas, dealing with severe osteoporosis, turned things around not just with supplements, but by taking up painting, walking daily, and spending less time watching distressing news. his bone scan didn't just stabilize, it improved for the first time in years. You also need to beware of medications that damage bones. Proton pump inhibitors, commonly prescribed for acid reflux, reduce stomach acid and therefore calcium and magnesium absorption. Certain antidepressants, corticosteroids, and diabetes medications like thiazolidinediones have also been linked to bone loss. A man in his late 60s from California had multiple fractures and couldn't figure out why, until a bone specialist reviewed his medications and found a clear connection. With his doctor's help, they adjusted his treatment, and his bone healing finally began. Don't assume your prescriptions are harmless. Ask questions and demand regular reviews, especially after 60. For those with severe bone loss already, clinical nutrition therapies are being used in more progressive clinics in the United States. These include targeted amino acid blends, high bioavailability mineral complexes, and even bone broth fasting protocols designed to reduce inflammation and regenerate tissue. In the United Kingdom, a nutritionist working with elderly patients with multiple fractures used a combination of silica-rich teas, magnesium-rich smoothies, and evening primrose oil for hormonal balance. The patients didn't just stop breaking bones. They gained mobility and confidence they hadn't felt in years. If you're dealing with arthritis or joint pain, don't assume it's unrelated to bone health. Inflammation in the joints can spill over into bone degradation. The foods that heal joints, omega-3s, collagen, turmeric, sulfur-rich vegetables like cabbage and onions, also heal bone. In Canada, a 64-year-old woman with both osteoarthritis and osteopenia started a regimen that included daily bone broth, turmeric tea, sardines, and steamed cabbage. Her pain levels dropped, her energy returned, and her bone scans stopped showing decline. One of the most underestimated tools is sunlight. In places like Minnesota, Alberta, or Scotland, where winter dominates half the year, vitamin D deficiency is rampant. No amount of dietary calcium can make up for lack of vitamin D, and supplements only go so far. A man in New York, taking 2,000 IU of vitamin D daily, still showed signs of deficiency. He started spending 15 minutes in direct sunlight on his patio every morning during spring and summer, without sunscreen, just on arms and face. By fall, his D levels normalized, and his bone resorption markers decreased significantly. Electrolyte balance also plays a major role. Potassium-rich foods like sweet potatoes, bananas, and avocados buffer acidity and support mineral balance. In the United States, most people consume far more sodium than potassium. This imbalance promotes calcium loss. One senior in Arizona, battling hypertension and brittle bones, was advised by her nutritionist to switch to potassium-rich meals, reduce sodium, and hydrate better. Within months, her blood pressure dropped and her bone pain started to ease. You need to stop thinking about bone health as just calcium and start seeing the whole system. Hormones, inflammation, sleep, posture, sunlight, stress, absorption, and most of all, food quality and variety. Because every bite you take can either feed strength or accelerate decline. Most people over 60 in the United States are walking around in a slow, silent state of malnutrition, eating enough calories but not enough nutrients. This doesn't just lead to weak bones, it leads to fractures, hospital stays, lost independence, and a cascade of complications that can completely alter your quality of life. Everything changes when you start seeing your plate as your prescription pad. Food is not optional. It's not just taste or tradition. It's the structure of your body. Every meal, every day, is a message to your bones. Stay strong, rebuild, protect me, or fall apart slowly. You decide.